Welcome, my friends, to the darkest corner. Today we have two ghost stories from coast to coast. Please enjoy.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're diving into a story that comes straight from the craggy coastline of Maine, a place where the sea whispers secrets and the old houses hold on to their tails like barnacles on a rock. This one comes from a viewer named Sarah, who lives in a small town just south of Acadia. And trust me, after hearing this, you might think twice about that charming New England getaway. Sarah's family has lived in their house for generations. It's one of those classic Maine farmhouses, all weathered, clapboard, and rambling additions, smelling faintly of salt and old wood. For years, the only strange thing was the occasional creak or groan the old place would let out, the kind you chalk up to settling. But about a year ago, things started to change. It began subtly, a whisper of a name when no one was speaking, a cold spot in the hallway that lingered even on the hottest summer days. Sarah's grandmother, who lived with them, would sometimes stare off into a corner and say, "He's watching." They'd always assumed it was just her getting on in years. Then, the objects started moving. Nothing dramatic, just a book sliding off a shelf, a kitchen knife ending up in a different drawer. But it was enough to make Sarah and her parents uneasy. They started joking about a mischievous house spirit trying to keep things light. One particularly foggy evening, the power flickered. The wind howled outside, rattling the old windows. Sarah was in the living room, trying to read by the dim light of her laptop screen, when she heard it. A soft, rhythmic thump. 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 Coming from upstairs. She called out to her parents, but they were out at a town meeting. It was just her and her grandmother, who was already asleep. Sarah's heart started to pound. The thumping continued, steady and relentless, like something heavy dragging itself across the floorboards. She told herself it was an old tree branch hitting the roof, but the rhythm was too deliberate, too purposeful. Gathering her courage, she slowly started to climb the creaking stairs. Each step seemed to echo in the silence, amplifying the thump, thump, thump from above. The sound was coming from the attic, a place they rarely went. The attic door was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness spilling into the hallway. Sarah hesitated, her hand trembling as she reached for the doorknob. Taking a deep breath, she pushed it open. The air that rushed out was icy cold, carrying a faint, musty smell. The only light came from the single bare bulb at the far end of the long, dusty space. And that's when she saw it, a dark figure, hunched over in the corner. It wasn't clearly defined, more like a shadow given form. And as it slowly turned its head towards her, she heard a raspy whisper, a sound like dry leaves skittering across pavement. Sarah couldn't make out the words, but the sheer malevolence in that sound sent a jolt of pure terror through her. She didn't think. She just ran. She stumbled back down the stairs, not stopping until she was out on the porch, the cold night air stinging her lungs. Her parents came home to find her huddled on the porch swing, white as a sheet. They didn't believe her at first, attributing it to an overactive imagination. But then her grandmother, who had been silent all evening, looked at them with wide, frightened eyes and said, "He doesn't like it when you go up there." Things have gotten worse since then. The thumping is more frequent, the whispers clearer, though still unintelligible. Sarah says they sometimes find objects arranged in strange patterns, like some kind of unsettling game. They've tried everything. Blessings, talking to the house, even ignoring it, but nothing seems to work. Sarah and her family are now living with a constant sense of dread, sharing their home with something they don't understand, something that feels increasingly hostile. They're not sure what this entity is or what it wants, but one thing is certain: the peace they once knew in their old Maine farmhouse is gone, replaced by a chilling presence that makes every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind, a reason to look over their shoulders. So what do you think is haunting Sarah's house? Have you ever experienced anything like this? Let me know in the comments below. And if you have a story you'd like to share, please send it my way. You might just end up on the channel. Thanks for watching, and sweet dreams, if you can get them. Title: The Ghost of Cannon Beach. The wind howled like a banshee, whipping the waves into a frenzy as they crashed against the towering haystack rock. Rain lashed down, blurring the already indistinct line between the churning sea and the inky sky. I huddled deeper into my rain jacket, the salt spray stinging my face. I had come to Cannon Beach seeking inspiration for my new horror screenplay, but the raw power of the storm was doing more than just inspiring me. It was filling me with a primal dread. Locals whispered tales of a spectral figure that haunted the beach on nights like these. They called her the Weeping Woman, a lost soul forever searching for her drowned lover. Some said she was a sailor's wife, others a Native American princess betrayed by a white settler. Whatever her story, her sorrow was said to be as vast and deep as the Pacific itself. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A pale, translucent figure was drifting along the shoreline, its form barely visible through the driving rain. It was tall and slender, draped in what looked like a tattered white gown. Its head was bowed, and I could have sworn I heard a faint, mournful sob carried on the wind. My heart hammered in my chest. I wanted to run, but I was frozen in place, mesmerized by the ghostly apparition. It glided closer, its ethereal form shimmering in the darkness. I could now make out the faint outline of a face, gaunt and sorrowful, with dark, empty eyes that seemed to pierce right through me. The weeping woman reached out a spectral hand, her long, pale fingers brushing against my cheek. A wave of icy cold washed over me, and I felt a profound sense of sadness, as if the ghost's grief had become my own. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her that her pain was over, but I couldn't speak. My throat was tight with fear and a strange, overwhelming sorrow. Then, as quickly as she had appeared, she vanished, fading into the storm like a wisp of smoke. The rain began to subside, and the wind died down to a mournful sigh. The only sound was the rhythmic crashing of the waves against the shore. I stood there for a long time, shivering and shaken, but also strangely moved by the encounter. I knew I would never forget the ghost of Cannon Beach, the weeping woman whose sorrow echoed in the roar of the ocean and the whisper of the wind.